Sean and I took a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Scotland. I'd been wanting to go to Scotland for several years, and we finally made it happen. After landing in Edinburgh at like 8 in the morning and running on about 4 hours of sleep, we wasted no time and started exploring the city. Sorry for all of the shaky footage. We were either walking or driving while recording, and we had just gotten this new camera, but we got some pretty cool stuff along the way. They had just had the military tattoo at the Edinburgh Castle, and this is them breaking down all of the stands and getting it back to the way that it normally is. We then took a pit stop in Dean's Village. This adorable village actually houses a lot of Edinburgh residents, and so we got to see some houses and schools, and it was just a sweet little experience. This was another really cool experience. These closes all throughout downtown Edinburgh, these were actually alleyways or communities under buildings where people used to live. They were named after the founding occupants of the close. One of the most famous closes is Mary King's Close. And a trip to Scotland is not complete without a giant whiskey tour. This one is in Edinburgh, and it was filled with hundreds of bottles of whiskey, some of which were a couple hundred years old. Scotland is known for its abundance of castles. There are actually over 1,500 castles in Scotland, most of which are dilapidated, but some are preserved and you can still visit today. This one is Stirling Castle. It is beautiful, it is giant, and it is filled with history. We had a wonderful time exploring for a couple of hours before heading to our next destination, Oban. Because much of Scotland is built up on a hill, there are stairs everywhere. And in order to get incredible views like this, we had to walk up dozens, sometimes 100 stairs. Our cabs were killing us, but the views were worth it. We then took a ferry from Oban to Isle of Mull to visit Tobermory. The first stop along the way was a darling castle that they are currently renovating. And then the fun began. This was probably one of our most memorable moments from our trip to Scotland when we almost got stranded on the island. At about 6 o'clock, we went back to our ferry port to catch the ferry back to the main island to our hotel. There that we found out that our ferry had actually been canceled for the night. So we were essentially stranded on the Isle of Mull, which has just a couple of hotels and places to eat. We were worried, to say the least, but we ended up catching a ferry just up north, and it took us about 4 to 5 hours to get back to our hotel. And when we say Scotland is an unforgiving landscape, we were driving on a one-lane road in the dark, in the rain, with virtually nobody anywhere around us. I mean, we were in the very remote areas of Scotland. And while we were worried at the time, it ended up being one of our favorite memories from the trip. It was definitely a white knuckle experience, to say the least.
Our fearless driver here, doing all the driving, chauffeuring me around. Doing a fantastic job. Grateful for you.
It's cool.
I said I'm grateful for you.
Oh, I think you said it's pretty cool.
Well, that too. She's braking! Ah! Doing a great job, babe.
It is windy in Scotland. We had so much fun exploring and climbing up the side of this mountain right before lunch, but the wind was relentless, as you can see. After lunch, we got back in the car and headed to the Isle of Skye. Right before that, we took a pit stop at one of Scotland's most famous castles, Eilean Donan. Our favorite stop on our trip in Scotland was this darling town, Plockton. It's off the beaten path from the Isle of Skye, but it was really sweet and there was a lot of livestock on the road. Definitely a must stop if you're able. The Isle of Skye is one of the most famous landscapes in Scotland. Located on the northwest side of the country, the Isle of Skye is often described as otherworldly or looking like it comes from another planet. We then made a stop at Blair Castle. This beautiful castle is preserved in time on the inside. Unfortunately, they did not allow video recording, but we got to see some tapestries that were over 1,000 years old. It was a beautiful experience, and the grounds were just as stunning. We saw some incredibly large trees, and we also stumbled upon a really old graveyard. This trip to Scotland was everything we imagined and more. It affirmed that Scotland is rugged and unforgiving, but it's full of incredibly kind Scottish people and beautiful, unique landscape. We can't wait to visit again in the future and explore more of what Scotland has to offer.